Can I sort that out?
Can only be great. You can have your camera on or off, entirely up to you at this point. Everybody's got very nicely curated backgrounds, all very plain. Mine looks, we've done Halloween already, we've gone there. If you want the captions, the words coming up at the bottom, then look down the bottom and press your CC button, and that will give you the option to have the text coming up if that's useful to you. We're waiting for our 25. I will be told when we hit the magic golden ceiling. Yes, do say hi in the chat. People are taking me literally. That's hi. Yep. Great. It's definitely autumn. I can see cardigans. We had a debate, a little group of women that I'm friends with. We had a debate about whether tights season had begun. So can I just get a nod if we're wearing tights? Oh, yeah, we've got some tight wearers. Yes, I'm sure there might be men here. You're perfectly able to wear tights as well. That's fine. Tight season. Yeah, there we go. Jeans. I can't do the jeans thing just working at home. Why do the tight waist? What's the point in that? Yeah, I'm leggings all the way. Okay, yeah, that's true. Pajamas. I actually have changed out. I do often work in pajamas, but today I did put a dress on. Okay, how are we all in yet? I'm imagining I'll get a magic symbol.
Yes, I think we're almost there. I've got a couple of people that have, I think, joined and left and joining again. Everyone else, I believe, in the waiting room didn't sign up, so I will let in people if they, if it turns out I was wrong. But I think we're good to go.
Okay, so I'll just repeat again for people who've just come in. You can have your video on or off, entirely up to you. At different points, hopefully we'll be able to see and hear from different people. There's closed captions for this session, so if you want the words to appear at the bottom, then just press your CC button, the closed caption button at the bottom, and that will appear up. The session is being recorded, so if you don't want to appear on screen, then keep your video. But I'm not supposed to be doing the introduction, so I'll shut up now and wait to be introduced.
Thanks, Jo. Hi, my name's Jess. I'm the project manager here at NRTF. And I just want to welcome you all to the first workshop on our first conference date. And we have this afternoon Jo Verrant from Unlimited running a practical session. It's all about tools and tips for access and inclusion. So I'm going to hand over to Jo now. We will be part of this workshop as well, so it's really interesting for us to be able to join you, Jo, on this session. So hopefully we can go away with lots of tips and tools. Jo, over to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to put in the chat just my contact details in case you want them later on. So they're in there to start with. So we're going to talk about the principles behind tips and tools to start with, because I just want to disappoint you all right from the off, really. There isn't a checklist about diversity or inclusion. There isn't a list of things that if you do them, you will then get everything right. And that's because there isn't a checklist for life, and every situation that comes up, there will be different people that you need to respond to in different ways. So for example, I define as somebody who's deaf, as somebody who's hearing impaired, but I talk, I use my voice. I didn't lose my hearing till I was 13, and now I still have residual hearing. People often assume that deaf people have no voice. I have a very loud voice that I use far too frequently. I do sign no, And I do wear a hearing aid, but I don't wear a hearing aid in my ears. I actually wear a very fancy one in my head, which is why my nickname is 7 of 9 for any Star Trek fans out there. Yay, excellent. I'm glad to see Star Trek references go down well. So I suppose what I'm saying is there isn't a typical deaf person. There isn't a typical blind person or visually impaired person. There isn't a typical person with autism. There isn't a typical wheelchair user. There is no typical, because everybody is human and everybody is individual. And that's why checklists, which can be really useful as a way of kind of checking what we have, they're not perfect, because they assume that every wheelchair user wants to be treated in one way, or every deaf person wants to be treated in another way. So I just kind of want to kind of frame today, beginning with that. And I also want to check whether people have heard of something called the social model of disability. So if you've heard of the social model of disability, wave any limbs enthusiastically. Yeah, okay, most people have very enthusiastic waving, like this a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share a very tiny 90-second video about the social model. Now, the last time I shared my screen, it was on a Zoom. Somebody had put the link out on the internet and somebody drew a penis on my screen as I was sharing it, which was very impressive technically. Now let's see if I can do this. Okay, I think I may have done this. And I'm going to show you a little video, and then we can talk about it. It just encapsulates a bit about what the social model is. Okay, so I've stopped showing that now. What was lovely to see the captions come on with coming up. So anybody want to pop their video on and tell me what they saw there in terms of who was making the decisions that made changes happen? Who were the people who actually made access happen for people in that video? Hands or microphone off and just go for it.
It looked like managers, senior managers, decision makers.
Yeah, so in that first clip about the building, it was those 3 potatoes at the top. You know, one of them had a tie on. We can assume it was a managerial tie. But yeah, it's the people who make decisions. And that's true for all of those. So who makes the decisions in terms of putting sign language on telly? Who makes the decisions there?
I'm not sure. I'm going to guess at the producers and the commissioners.
So the commissioners, definitely. So there's 2 things that happens. One is, so top potatoes, yes. One is that there's a legal side to it. So none of the broadcasters started to either caption or put sign language onto their terrestrial broadcasts until it became a legal requirement to do so. So often there's pressure from, you know, we have to do this because it's a legal thing rather than we actually have the capacity to do this. But I suppose the thing is that an individual, if you just made a piece of video and wanted to get it broadcast, you couldn't put the subtitles. You have to go through those gatekeepers. You have to go through the people who have control. You are all people who have control. You're all people who can make those decisions. And in fact, you're the only people who can often make those decisions to give access. So access isn't about what an individual can do. It's not about what a disabled person can do. It's very much about what you can do. That last potato, what was happening in that last little clip with the pink potato? The pink potato is me. I am the pink potato.
It looked like you got tired quite easily and needed to have a little nap. And then one of the colleagues identified that that was a need you had and found you a cosy sofa in a little quiet room.
Absolutely, which is why when we were in offices at Arts Admin, one of the places where Unlimited is based, we now have a nap room with lovely little cozy blankets and a little sofa where I can go and take a nap. The joy of working from home is that I can nap any time I want. And in fact, need to nap less because I'm not exhausting myself with all the traveling that usually happens. So there's definite upsides to all this too. So the basic principle around access and the social model is people need to take responsibility for access. And the people who need to take responsibility are the people who are controlling whatever it is that other people want access to. So it's not a disabled person's responsibility, it's organisers, producers, bosses, it's top potatoes who need to take responsibility for access. But sometimes it can be quite hard to know where to start and to kind of I'm just going to put a link to that animation and an audio described version of it in the chat. It's on the internet. It was created by a disabled artist. So Unlimited's commissions program, we commission disabled artists to do everything. Please use it. We've had nearly 8,000 views or something like that so far. It's really good. It's been used, and we created it as a silent thing so that we could use it internationally as a way of having conversations about the social model. So I wanted to kind of put that up from the first bit, but I'm actually going to talk today, or we're going to play today, a card game that again we developed for an international audience. So the card game is called Cards for Inclusion, mercilessly ripped off Cards Against Humanity in terms of the whole box styling and everything. And I have 4 packets of these, 4 actual physical packets in my house that I can mail out to people. And when somebody gets to an office, we can also mail out more. So do shove addresses in there if, as going through this, you go, I would like a set of those, and then we can mail them out. You might not want one. You might come to the end of this, think it's all rubbish and not want to ever see them again, but we like them. So when you open the pack, you get a whole stack of different cards, okay? So we're going to look at those cards and we're going to play a game with them. So they break into 3 different categories. So the first cards, I don't know if you can see that on there, it says what. Yeah. So there's a set of what cards, and what cards are all about different artistic elements, different things you might do. So there's one there that says theatre performances, one there that says dance performances. I'll move that slightly further back. But there's also things like marketing material, film, all kinds of things that you might use. There's also some that, because they cover all art forms, we've also got things like installations, computer games, workshops. So there's 25 different activities. And when we play for real, you never know which activity you're going to pull out. The second card is a where card. Okay, so we have a whole set of where cards, and they include things like a wood, or a school, or a theatre. But they also include things, luckily, we were ahead of the game, and we did think of things like Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that. We also got quite carried away and thought of things like castles, various things, and beaches. One of my favourite illustrations. The illustrations are by a deaf artist called Sohail, who we commissioned, who lives between the UK and Berlin, and I love them. But yeah, sadly, not on a beach in Yorkshire. Never mind. Then the third set of cards are all about barriers. And some of those barriers will be things that we're really used to experiencing. Possibly not this one so much now. This was the crowds card. I think we're, maybe this will come back as a barrier. Maybe not, we'll see, fingers crossed. But a lot of the barriers are things that we would expect. So for example, if you create content and it's got something visual, then you're going to need to look at it. And obviously that's a barrier if you can't look at things. So it's not the not being able to look at things that's the barrier. It's the fact that we've created something that can be experienced in that way only, or in that way as a major part of it. So the barrier is located in the thing and not in, it's not somebody's barrier that they can't see. The barrier is we've created a work that needs to be looked at. That's the way we kind of frame it. But barriers are also things like change being hard. And we know that we're in the midst of massive change at the moment, and it's very hard indeed. Money is often a barrier. I don't know if you can see, I don't know how close to hold these. There we go, we're going to do that. And we've also got barriers like people don't have experience with disabled people, which is a real barrier for people, and people think disability is embarrassing, which can be a barrier. So the barriers are really wide ranging. They're not just things that we would expect, like things that need to be seen or heard, but they also include quite socially based barriers about isolation, about finance, about a range of different things. So in the card game, you get a set of 3 cards when you play. And you have to instantly, as quick as you can, come up with a solution that takes that art form in that space with that barrier and solves it. Okay? And it's an instant thing, because what we're doing is we're training our minds to think differently about access. We're training our minds to come up with multiple solutions. Because quite often when we're thinking about access, we go for one solution and then we adopt that one. We don't necessarily think of 3 or 4 options and then make an informed choice about what we might do. So I've picked 3 cards that are really dead simple, really easy ones to start with. And then we'll go through some that are a bit harder. And I want to pick on different people each time. So believe me, there is an incentive in speaking up early. Because if you get to answer the easy ones, you won't have to answer the harder ones. Okay? So let me just put a link up. Is there a village hall? Yes, there is a village hall. I'm fairly sure there's a village hall in it. I hope. If not, we're going to make one. Right, so these are our first 3 cards. These are the first 3. So this is a band. Okay, so we're going to put a band. We're going to put a band on a street. Okay, band on a street. And the barrier we've got to get over is the good old-fashioned uneven ground or steps. Okay, so we're looking at physical disability. We've got a band on a street who can instantly think of a creative solution, a creative way of doing that overcomes the issue of the fact. Oh, yep, brilliant. Jess.
I would suggest that the performers go to the audience rather than the audience having to travel upstairs or across uneven ground to get to the performers.
Yep, okay, so we've got a performance that's in the street. That's one of our key things. But again, the performers could be the people who move rather than the audience. Okay, so that's one option. Give me another option.
Put it on a street where it's really accessible. So there's ramps and there's easy routes to get there.
Yeah, we could think really carefully about where we site it. So making sure that we pick a space, and also that we don't block any access that is there already. Quite often when we set something up, we might set it up near one of those dropped curbs without thinking about actually the audience might require that drop curb. But yeah, we can really pick the most accessible place within a cityscape or within a townscape. And we can also recheck to make sure that it will remain that way when we actually come to do our performance. Because has anybody done any outdoor work where you've checked it, you've done your site rec, you go back the next time and it's all changed because there's roadworks or there's something like that? Okay, we need a third option, something else we can do. Suzanne.
Hi, make sure that you're really clear in your publicity about the space that you're using to perform in, and make sure that you've got some way for audience members to contact you in advance to raise any.
Yeah, so they can get that information. They know where it is. On that information you can have, this is how you access it. If you need a drop curb, this is where it is, that kind of stuff. You can let people know about uneven ground. For example, if you're somebody who uses a wheelchair, you might not usually bring a support person along with you. But if you knew there were going to be cobbles, oh, you would. Absolutely. We had somebody else put their hand up. Lindsay, I think it was you.
I did. I was thinking that you should choose a residential street and then no one has to move. It's just the band who have to show up to the street. So you, everyone just opens their windows and experiences the gig from home.
And this has started to happen. I know a couple of performances that have already happened on drive past performances for people who are shielding. And I'm on the shielding list, or was on the shielding list, refused to call myself extremely vulnerable, not a term I experience very often. Don't like the phrasing, but yeah, we can do it as a drive thing. So we can start to think of kind of quite creative things. I'm quite interested in putting bands in shops and having the top bit open. So actually having them higher up so everybody can look at them and using that like a stage thing rather than doing everything on a street level. So lots of solutions. Okay, so you get the idea. That was a very simple set. So we're going to go for another set that I pre-prepared, and then we're going to pick some out at random. But this is the next one. So we've got a poetry reading. So potentially gone quite highbrow now. Okay, poetry reading. And we're going to do this in a park. Okay, nice little park there. But we're also going to do it, because we've been paying attention to COVID, we're also going to do it on a website, because this is how we do things now. We do things in multiple spaces simultaneously. And we know one of the barriers with poetry is that you have to listen to it. So if you're like me and listening isn't something that comes particularly easy to you, that's going to be the barrier we're going to try and solve. So a poetry reading, live in a park, also on a website, and we're trying to get over the fact that you have to listen to it. That's the barrier we're trying to look at. So hands up, ideally different hands. Kate.
So on the website, make sure that you're thinking about captioning, and potentially online and in the park, making sure you've got BSL interpreters.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do that. Joanna?
Hi, I was thinking that if you are in the park and you're watching it in the park, cordoning off the area, so to try and limit the sound from outside of other people playing in the park, for example, so that there's like a little buffer of extra sound.
Absolutely. And you would use something called baffle boards, which is the technical term for those things that can help create little sound pockets. And you could also look around the park for where natural little sound pockets happen. If you've got little dips, those kind of things. Poetry is often an intimate art form. So yeah, creating little pockets where that could happen. Other ideas, other ways. Yes, Emily.
I actually did a poetry in the park event as a performer last year, and it was done as you do, because we perform anywhere, and they're certainly not highbrow. We did it on basically no budget, as most poetry events are done. So everybody bought printouts of their poems, a few copies, and we handed them out to people who needed them. We had a choose where you sit thing, so people just bought picnic blankets. People bought spare picnic blankets and chairs for other people, and it was a very community thing. In that, like, there was a Facebook group made for it, and it's like, oh, can people bring extras of this, can people bring extra snacks, and it was done, like, you know, very, very much that way, so that everyone felt involved.
That's brilliant, and a whole load of things in there that are really worth learning from. The whole sit where you like, but also take care of who gets to be at the front, and if somebody needs that space, have that. I love the fact that you all brought along your own poems, because it's great to be given a set of stuff to read along, but how amazing if it's actually given to you by the poet, and it's not just an access thing, but it's also that personal connection, you know. And it's, I think that's really, that would really make me feel not a problem, but that would actually make me feel welcomed in a really different way. And yeah, that's on no money or little money. Anyone else got any ideas? Okay, so National Theatre of Wales are being bigged up as leaders in this field. Suzanne, tell us why. What have they done that links to this?
Well, quite often when I've attended events, I've only sort of noticed it as a random thing because I haven't experienced it. But a couple of National Theatre events I took my very old and frail dad to, and then I just noticed how thoughtful it was, how it wasn't the same experience, but it wasn't less of an experience than the rest of the promenade audience was having. And they did brilliant audio description, brilliant signing. They had reserved places for wheelchair users to be manoeuvred into place, and it was just so thoughtfully done. And because their work is always site specific, it's always very challenging, and they really do seem to put as much attention into that as they do into any other aspect of the production. And I know from working in a building-based theatre for a long time, quite often access issues are sort of a bit of a post-it note that you stick on at the end, and that can't work as well. It can't work as well.
Yeah, and I think also it's the care that you can take to individualise. I think what's great about places like National Theatre of Wales is because they're doing something site specific, it is so individual that you can then keep the aesthetic of the work going through how you deliver the access. So there's something about poetry is beautiful in sign language, but it's beautiful in sign language when an interpreter has had time with the poet. I went to a literature festival and saw John Cooper Clarke with an interpreter who was only booked for the day and had never heard his work before. It was not a comfortable experience for her or for me, or indeed for John Cooper Clarke, whose words are so fast paced. And actually a written version of it in front of me would have been a much better option, because that would have helped me get those words. Quite often, though, we do come across barriers of people going, oh, I don't know what I'm going to perform. I'll make it up in the moment. You know, I'll choose the poems in the moment, and that can be slightly harder to deal with. We have to kind of persuade people that we all need to go on this journey at the same time. Any others for our poetry in the park? Nope. Should we go for a completely random one then? Now, some of these you think they are so random that they're not possible, but we've always come up, they're the ones actually I think where we learn the most. So I need someone, I don't know how we get, so randomly I need somebody to pick, these are the what cards. So as I go along, somebody say stop.
Stop.
Okay, so we're going to go for the, you have chosen, you've chosen a book. Okay, so we're going to double them up. We're going to do 2 because the book's a bit dull. Okay, so we're going to do another one. We're going to have 6 cards going at the same time. Books are not dull. I'm not saying books are dull in theory, just in relation to the game. Okay, somebody else say stop.
Stop.
Okay, that's that one. So we've now, oh, okay, we've got a book and a theatre performance. Okay, where are we going to deliver these? Okay, say stop, somebody.
Stop.
Stop. Okay. Okay, we're doing it on Facebook, and we're doing it. Somebody else say stop.
Stop.
In a museum. Excellent. Okay, Facebook and a museum. And the barriers we're going to work with are
Stop.
oh, that's a blank card because I forgot to take the blank cards off the end. In each pack there are blank cards, so you can write your own barriers, things, whatever on them. So we'll have to do that again, sorry, but that was a useful learning point.
Stop.
Okay. So that's an interesting barrier. I do that in a different way. So how do we make sure that somebody who doesn't do things in a normative fashion, which is the horrible term that often gets cited, is able to do things in the way that they do things? Okay. And we'll have 2 of these. So we need another one. Okay, interesting one for our current times. We've got to provide access for people who can't leave home. It's almost like we were ahead of the game when we wrote these. So this could be somebody who's shielding. It could be somebody who doesn't have carer support to travel away from home. Equally, it could be somebody who has fatigue, and that might be why they can't leave home. Or it could be around mental health conditions, a whole range of different things. There's a whole range of reasons. So we've got a theatre performance and a book in a museum, but also on Facebook, which we want to be widely available for people who do things in a non-normative fashion, and also people who can't leave home. What can we do? Is it Serin?
Kerin. Yeah, sorry. I think in connection with the theatre performance in the museum, in respect to people who can't leave home, it could be streamed, it could be live streamed into their homes, as so many things are being now anyway. At least that would give them direct access to what other people were seeing in the museum. Yeah, that would be the most simple way, I would think.
Yeah, and anything that we live stream, we can also record, because we have to account for the fact that not everybody has availability at the specific time that we're doing something. And some people might want to chunk things up into 5 minutes at a time. And technically we can do that now. It's no problem for us to do it. So why should we not do that? But when we live stream something, we do have to, again, put that time and care and attention so that that version, it's not going to be the same as being there, but so that elements are the same, so that the aesthetic is the same, so that the experience is as similar as we can make it. It's not one camera right at the back and we just leave it there. It's like, can we create a way of making that a better experience?
Can I jump on from that?
Yeah.
So I was having a discussion the other day and saying that if we are going to do something like that, could the filming happen as somebody walking into the space, holding a camera, sitting down if there is a chair for them to sit down in, or just somebody who's experiencing it in a way that somebody else who cannot leave their home would experience it if they were able to access into the space?
Yeah, so you could even do that with multiple points of view. 2 or 3 different cameras, each held by a different audience member, so that you could then pick. You could then have a chat with them in the interval. We used to have a robot. I say robot, iPad on a stick on wheels that somebody could control remotely. So they could go around a space. It's actually easier to get somebody to hold the iPad and to go around, but it's exactly that principle. If somebody can hold an iPad that's got a camera on and go around a space, it's a really nice way of having that one-to-one intimate experience. That's the same thing. Somebody's put in the chat, be great to allow the people at home the chance to alter the show. The actors speak the words or perform an action as directed by them. So yeah, is there an interactive way with the audience around? Again, that would really suit people who don't necessarily do things in the same way. We assume a lot of theatre etiquette, that people would know that you know that a play has a beginning and a middle and an end, that you are quiet during a show. Well, that doesn't apply to. They don't necessarily understand or know that etiquette. And we would want to make sure they were as welcome within that space as anything else. Other solutions? Yes, Hannah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, following on from that, if you were doing the theatre performance in the actual museum for the doing things in a different way, like that exact thing, that there's the expectation that everybody should be quiet and just making it a comfortable space, like a relaxed performance where there isn't that setup of we are sitting to watch something, so everyone has to be really quiet. And if someone makes a noise, it's like, So I suppose that follows on from what you were saying. It's just kind of more relaxed environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And loads of hints and tips about how to make relaxed performances from Jess Tom, I think is our leading expert in this country around that. Beautiful suggestion in the chat to work with the library services to deliver the book to people in their homes. I love the idea of something being a real physical and not a digital solution. If there was the book of the play, or if they were morphed together or whatever, but the idea of something actually arriving and opening and you followed along with a book, I mean, that would be amazing. I've watched a couple of things that I've had something delivered to me and then I've watched something online, and they really do make a difference. It really does make a difference to that experience. Any more? Couple more. Karen.
I just wanted to say about kind of tailoring the performance to different venues. I've worked on shows before where there's been like different versions of the show. So I worked on a show called The Mystery of the Rattlesham Mumps, and we had like a full-blown, performance that goes into traditional theatres, but also there was like a pared down version for libraries and museums and smaller community spaces. So it's possible to kind of create a show that works in different spaces by paring it down.
Yeah.
And also that worked on different levels, because that was a book. It's like charades. It was a book, it was theatre, it was online, it was a VR experience as well, it was a CD. So there was all kind of multiple versions of the poem.
Yeah, and then I think for me it's about us getting excited about access. The whole idea behind the cards is to give us another way into it, rather than a checklist of have we got a sign language interpretation, have we got captions, have we got this. Instead, can we think aesthetically about what we do and creative ways? We all work in the creative sector for a reason. Can we think of creative access solutions? There's a lovely idea about phoning in to the book reading or the play So if somebody at home didn't have internet, like my mum is really struggling, she's 85, she doesn't have internet, she spends massive amounts of time on the phone at the moment. For her to be able to phone in the performance, I think would be amazing. It would be a really, really beautiful experience for her. So you get the idea behind the cards, and we've got more suggestions coming, different rooms or galleries in the museum to perform the show as a promenade piece. And then you've got that transaction, that moving around for people who don't want to sit still. Lovely. So with the cards, you can draw them at random and they spark conversations. That's all they're doing. It's just providing a conversation, a way into talking about access. We also have some people who have used them more thematically. They've taken out cards that don't apply to them and then looked at using them as visual and word prompts to help them delve into a particular thing. So if you were going to do something like Karen's just suggested, you could actually put those cards up and then see how many of the barrier cards you could overcome and what barriers were still kind of left. We've also, we had some people use them at job interviews, which I think is personally quite terrifying. The idea of somebody asking me to play a game at a job interview, but we use them at team meetings as a way of starting them. So there's lots of different ways. Can anybody think of any other ways that they might be able to use them? Board meetings, excellent idea. Yeah, you know, it's that thing that just anything to take access out of this this tick box frame into something that's a bit about creativity. With volunteers, yeah, we're getting more addresses. Again, I can send the ones that I have and I'll send the list for when somebody is in an office. Yes, the top potatoes all need to play this. But sometimes we still need tips and tools, because sometimes somebody might say something like relaxed performances came up here and some of us nod and go yes, but sometimes people want to actually know, well, what does a relaxed performance mean? How do I find out how to do the best kind of relaxed performance? And then I think we do go to guides and manuals and articles and those kind of things. Where do people look when you're looking for those kind of guidance materials around access and inclusion? Where do you look at the moment?
Arts Council.
Arts Council, yeah. Arts Council's got some really good lists of resources as well as resources itself. And it's worth looking at all the formats that Arts Council did around their last funding call out, because they've never done so many. Has everybody come across Easy Read, for example, which is like easy text and images? It's a bit like we've tried to do on the cards. We've tried to make them so they can be understood by a range of different people, and then got an image that in most cases helps you understand the text. Some of them maybe less so, but on most cases it does help. Lots of charities working with those specific groups of people have guidance too, absolutely. Where else do we go? Can anyone think of any, what's their core resource? What's your core go-to resource? Oily Cart, visual stories, and that's an example of something which is a really good tool where you've got a simple visualization of the narrative within a piece. And Jess Tom, that I mentioned earlier, also does sonic stories. She explains the what the auditory experience of a performance would be. So where are the very loud noises? Is there a bang? Is there something like that? So that people know when they're coming up, which is really good. So regularly checking websites of other organisations, brilliant, all that. Has anybody ever gone to, has anyone ever gone to Unlimited's website for this kind of stuff? If not, do check it out. I'm going to put some stuff. So I've got to put a couple of resources up there. We've got one on demystifying access, which is really basic, but it's about what captioning is, what sign language interpretation, what audio description is, what a relaxed performance is. a couple of other ones in there. The one I go to that somebody else has written more. I haven't actually got the link from, but it's the ISAN Guide to Outdoor Arts. I don't know if anybody else has gone to uses that. Yeah, there's a few nods. Can anyone, if they think of anything else that they use really often, shove it in the chat. Either an organisation, we've got some organisations coming up there, and resources, and then we'll get a little list, and we can share the list in the main, what's it called, the rural artsy platformy thing. That. All I can remember is it's got a town hall in it, which I love. But it should have Attendify, that's it. Yes, we will make sure that this list goes into Attendify. Okay. So what else? We've got about 10 minutes before we're due to finish. I wanted to make sure that we had time for direct questions, because nobody comes to this session just for a laugh. Usually people come because they've got something they're trying to sort out, or they want advice or support with. So who's got a question? Oh, yes. Emily.
Thanks. Sorry, I couldn't see if anyone else had their hand up, so I need to check. We were having a discussion, myself and my colleague Selena, who's in this chat as well, before this session. And one of the things we were talking about is we've got a couple of vacancies potentially coming up in our organisation. And we were looking after the last session, and we're not the most diverse organisation. Our volunteers are, our board members are, but actual staff, not so much. We're mostly white females, pretty much. And we wanted to know that, because that's also who applies to the jobs. How can we make it more accessible? How can we get more diverse people applying for the jobs, but also people who are like got the experience, and like how can we get more quality applications from different areas, basically, is the question. Who should we be sending these applications to? How can we reach those people?
Okay, let's see who's got a good response to that.
Speak to people who are working within those. I'm a blind artist, I can help.
Perfect.
Okay. How do people find you? How do people get in contact with those people who can help push things out?
It's generally about putting things up on ACE, arts jobs, all those kind of areas, and specifically saying you're looking for deaf and disabled artists, because otherwise people will think that you're not looking for those type of artists, because you have to be quite blunt about it at the moment, because there is such a line between what we can actually access and what we can't, and organisations who are actually looking to employ us and those who are just saying that they are.
Yeah, so I would agree, and I think it's about tailoring your call out. I think if one of the things you want to achieve is a more diverse, say, staff team or volunteer pool or whatever, then say so. You can actually make it a criteria. We are looking for people, who will help us diversify, our staff team, and then it becomes a scoreable criteria at assessment. So you can actually give a score on how different is this person to everybody else who already works here, which can be really useful if you've got that kind of matrix. But people really, you don't want to be putting things like we are striving for diversity, because words like that really put people off. But just to be really honest and open and upfront, I think really helps. And absolutely to try and get outside your usual networks. So it's not just where you would normally advertise a role, but to try and piggyback on organisations. We have an allies scheme, and we regularly share allies call outs in the hope that they will reach kind of slightly further out. But again, find individuals and tap into their networks too. I think that really, really helps. Any other good ideas around recruitment? We found allowing people to have a chat rather than just fill in a form. So, you know, talking to people about the job before people apply. If you can make the time for that, that really helps too. Because some people might not know the organisation in the same way that other people do. And so if you can say, you know, we're here for a conversation, that can be really welcoming. What about another question?
I would say it's quite important.
Go for it.
I would say that it's quite important to actually look at what you're doing to make your workplace a space that those people would want to come into. So if you're not already doing work to make it accessible or inclusive, then it might be that you want to start doing that work before people want to come and work for you. Because otherwise, quite often what can happen is somebody comes into a space, gets the job, and then kind of leaves quite quickly because actually they don't feel that that is a very healthy space for them to be in.
Yeah, a really good question to ask anybody who starts work with you is, what do you need to do your best work? We want you to do your best work. You want to do your best work. So again, it's that social model thinking. What do we need to get out the way? What barriers do we need to remove so that we can get you to do your best work? I do my best work if I can have a nap regularly. You know, regular nap time means I can do my best work. It's not something that I want just for a laugh. It's not something I want because I'm lazy. It's not something I want. It's something that's that's a requirement. And yet, I'm in my 50s now, and I think I've only worked in 2 spaces that have actually made that possible for me. You know, that's not good odds, really. Let's see if we can squeeze in another question before we have to finish. Anybody else? Sue.
Sorry, I'm asking this over video rather than writing it into chat. I was just thinking about how we've all been forced into new working environments, and we've adapted our working practice as a result. So you have naps and that works for you, but I don't. I no longer sit at my desk for 7 hours a day. I go off for walks and I do things. And how much is this major change that we've been through going to change everything for everyone in some way? That has to be positive, because I don't work in a normal office anyway. But do we want to do that? Do we want to be in an environment where you can't have breaks or you have to sit in someone else's chair? What's the future going to look like?
Yeah, I really hope. I've had access to more meetings than I've ever had access to before, in a way that really suits me. And I don't want to lose that when we all go back to whatever we go back to, because it didn't work before. So this has worked in some ways better. I do miss people though, and I don't want to have an entirely virtual life. But yeah, how do we keep the best bits of it? Kate?
I think it's a difficult one, because I think there's great things about working from home, but also it relies on you having a space where you can do that. Having a setup in your home that I'm sat in our hall, which is covered in my washing and which is fine, but it's not. So I think that there's different, and I know at 3:15 my kids will come through the door and it'll become a very different environment. So I think it's finding out how we take the best bits and make it work moving forward. I think I've not quite resolved it in my head yet.
I think that's really true. We have 2 trainees at any one time, and some of our staff live in shared houses, and they found it very, very difficult because they don't have a room. They're living and working and sleeping. Everything is in the same room, and it's not the same for all of us. So it is about keeping what works for you and not going back to a normal. But it's not assuming that the last 6 months has been comfortable for everybody. Absolutely. But again, asking people when they start with you, how can you do your best work? Where do you need to do it from? Yeah. We don't now have a culture where we need to be in the same office every day, all the time together. So what's going to work best for you? What's going to work best for us as a team? And every time anybody joins that team, that conversation should be revisited. Not, it's been all right for us lot and you've just got to fit in. but actually it's an opportunity to refresh that conversation and have all of that conversation anew. Somebody's put in the chat, funding is a huge huge issue around access, and I think it really is. It absolutely is. I think my only advice about that is, again, about thinking creatively. We had that brilliant example earlier about the poems, and actually if we couldn't caption the poems, we could give the poems out and it didn't cost us, you know, the intermediary. So I think sometimes we jump to expensive access solutions when we can, with a bit of creativity, potentially come up with ones that might be more bespoke. And even you know, even in when we're paying people, it's often cheaper to find an individual and to pay them rather than to go through an agency. Agencies, you know, often have additional costs added on, and that's about timing. Have you got time to think ahead and plan ahead, or are you doing things last minute? I know we're slightly over time now. I'm just putting up a few things about Unlimited. We've got a current open commissions round, so if you know of any disabled artists, and I can't remember your name, but the person who spoke, please do look. We've got audio information about our awards as well. We've got awards that are specifically for rural touring, one with Pentabus and one with Farnham Maltings. We've also got a call out for board members at the moment, and we've also got our allies scheme, which keeps people in the loop about what we're doing and helps us share information, like I mentioned earlier. So please, if you're not part of those, then that's another way of getting involved. I can't believe that was an hour. Where did that hour go? How did that happen? But I think that's it. I think we're timed out because there'll be other really interesting things happening now. Something like that.
Thank you everyone for joining us in this session. If you do want to go back to Attendify, we have a new showcase for you, and the next live session will be a Q&A shortly afterwards. Thanks very much everyone, and see you soon.